Up next, we have an exciting panel that dives deeper into one of Wool's greatest strengths, its inherent versatility and sustainability, which continue to inspire design and innovation across the industry. This discussion brings together creative voices in the industry, leaders who are pushing the boundaries of what wool can be, exploring new textures, uses, and stories that highlight wool's unique role in a sustainable fashion future. So now I'm going to give over to Lezanne Viviers, who's going to introduce the panels, and enjoy.
It's very exciting to have Roxanne Maddocks here. She's from Samuel and African Expression Yarns. They specialize in baking yarn specifically for the hand knitting sector and with a focus on South Africa. Then we've got Ronel Jordaan here in the middle. She's an amazing felt maker, sculptor with merino wool. And then we've got Jana Vermaas sitting at the end there, who's from the Free State University, and she's more scientifically focusing on research and new development and innovation, but from a cellular polymer scientific. I think we've had such amazing talks this morning, this evening, like the traceability and the regenerative farming. Like it really is inspiring to see what's happened within this very industry, like year to year, coming to the whole cycle, and then to see how far we've cut. To me, that's personally very exciting. But it does feel like maybe it's because we're a part of it that there's a revolution happening. You know, there's something magical and very exciting in our country, but also globally. And maybe it's because we are craving to be closer to nature, being closer to earth, and you know, what better than to have a little bit of wool on your body. I would like to start by asking all the different panelists today just what innovation means to each of you specifically in your practice. Roxanne, maybe you can tell us a little bit more.
For me, innovation means thinking differently, looking for the problem to find a solution. We often expect markets to tell us what it wants, and sometimes we have to try and tell it what it needs. We need to look at things slightly differently, and similar that's what innovation is.
For me, the innovation is, especially because I do hand felting, is trying to create products that I can train the ladies that work with me to do, because I can dream up a lot of things, but if they can't do it, it defeats the reason why I started my company. And that was to upskill women and help women.
What I think about innovation is to apply new knowledge to a problem or to solve a problem with the intention to add value.
I think it's interesting also just to understand like where the dialogue is between what the market wants and what you suggest. And then how does one actually do that? Is it research-based? Is it an intuitive feeling? I think often for us as a brand, we also need to kind of innovate with new collections and new things. But at the same time, when clients walk through the door and they ask you for specific things, you know, you have to respect both sides of that.
The consumers are not that informed always. So I think to do a needs analysis is also very applicable to see what they want. What do they know about wool and its properties and how they can use it? And that informed decision of that is why I am paying this price for this product, or that is why I want this product. I don't always think consumers are that informed. So I think to inform them and then do a needs analysis of what they want before you make a product. I think that goes back to having an open dialogue between producers and individuals. We'll call them consumers, we'll call them individuals. So we need to have the discussions. We need to know what is needed, where we can help.
I think interestingly in Dion's presentation, we also saw like what consumers want at this point in time. And they mentioned comfort. And yet sustainability is at the bottom of the line. But we know comfort and wool is like hand in hand. So it could also be interesting to use that kind of data and then just through communication saying, okay, so you're after comfort, but we're giving you this comfort and how. And maybe that's a communication thing, or maybe that's just something even more to take note of is to see if that is the first point for young people. What they want is, okay, how do we address that at that point in time or in this point in time? So the big question, why wool? Why are we all here today before wool?
It is such a versatile fiber. It can be used from hand knitting to apparel to sports baits, insulation, more soundproof bait. It's literally limited by imagination.
I would like to know what's been the most exciting things that all three of you have seen recently, like through innovation happening in wool, from a yarn level perspective to in the felt making, or just, something that you find that's very, very interesting and innovative.
The medical use of wool it fascinates me that they use the fiber, they break down to the protein and then use it in gels as wound dressings, and that to me is absolutely amazing.
I think it was a tricky question for me. They're also at the moment working on smart textiles. So yeah, I think that for me was innovative. For me, it's any person that takes a simple, humble strand of yarn and converts it into a masterpiece, be it a wearable piece or something functional.
Like when I was doing some research, I saw that they use some of the offcuts in wool factories, like some yarn and some of the, I want to say in the fluffy forms that's on the floors, and they started mixing that with resins. So in a way, you started creating like new fiberglass, but with the properties of wool blended with a natural resin, which I think just again shows how versatile it is. To all of you, how does the traditional views of wool and in the traditional practice and science and technology, how do those two come together in your own practice, in the way of when you innovating new things? How important is tradition versus incorporating technology and science in your approach?
To me, on academic expression side, it's hand knitting. It is one of the most traditional forms of art, I think, other than painting perhaps. And to me, you need that. You need the foundations that tradition has set in order to build on that. You can evolve in pattern design in terms of cut and sew or making seamless pieces to reduce your waste. It is evolving constantly, and it doesn't necessarily need technology to evolve it. It needs imagination, and that comes from divisional thought. It comes from a human being. You make the items for humans, and you need that human element.
The medium of felt is so amazing because what you can dream, you can make. Yes. And so if you can dream it, you can then, with the felting technique, you can teach it, and you can spread that word and that technique, and every single person that they create will bring their own energy, their own personality to it. For me, the wonderful thing about wool is that I can go really big and it will still hold the shape. It doesn't collapse. You can combine it. I've done resin tests with bio-resin now, and it works. Did you have it? If the resin isn't a nice spot of it. Oh, did you find a bio-resin? Yes. It's not a completely Gaia resin. The one that I got hold of only has 50% is biodegradable. The rest isn't. I'm very fortunate that there's a lab in Cape Town who is helping me to work with a completely bio gel to firm the wool so I can go bigger. I hope that works out. A lot of things don't always pan out the way you want it. The thing with the felting is that it's just magical. It's the process that's so magical. And that comes from your fiber.
Sometimes science does happen in a lab, but that's my whole thing about when I got the question about traditional practices. Yeah, in my academic world, it needs to be experimented with in a lab and written down and methods and etc. But a lot of things happen at work, like with things that you do at your work. So I think what is important is to get those traditional ways and actually publish them so that they can be out there, so that it can be on record that this is one of the methods that can be used to do something.
Are you saying you're moving to being more transparent in sharing? Is that what you mean? Instead of things having to be kept secret?
You also I think it is like that, but also that thing about just like bragging about what you can do and how you do it. Just like, yeah.
So when I thought about this question for myself, I thought about ChatGPT. I'm sure most people here have tried using it. And like, I'm definitely not afraid of AI, nor do I think it's going to take over the world or my practice. I see it more as a reflection of your own consciousness and a reflection of kind of what you're putting into it. So I see it as something that can be your creative assistant. You know, you need to speak things into happening. And I think that's what I heard from you of them. It's like imagination, dream it up. Just what we put into it, and then also see how it can just make things easier in your life. Maybe there's something to play a little bit around with without feeling that it can take away the humane touch and the humane making process, but helping you.
Do you want me to ask AI to come and fold?
Yeah, no, but maybe if you, let's get to the barriers and the frustrations that we have. Maybe that's something. If you're thinking of working with wool and in your innovation process, what frustrations do you have, or what obstacles do you come across? And then maybe I'll ask all of you, and then I'll ask ChatGPT.
For me is not being able to have a 100% South African merino yarn. We have Inspire. Ronel, very familiar with this yarn. It is a non-superwash merino wool. Imagine if this could be South African merino wool being used in knitwear across South Africa and the globe. We export this, we sell it locally. It is one of our bread and butter yarns. I don't have to do a hard sell on it. People can touch it and they both touch. It's that comfort aspect. And I would love to see us having 100% South African merino. We've got some of the finest merino being produced here. Why can't we have it in a yarn? Unfortunately, we have to rely on foreign producers to send us fiber. We can't identify where it's been grown. We can't verify that. Let me put it that way. We can't verify when the fiber has been grown. But if we can have a blockchain system like Dion has initiated, that we can say it's come from this farmer on this plot of land, it would be phenomenal. It would be game changing.
And with the processing that's now started happening in South Africa,
Yes. Hagra and Co are, for me, the light at the end of that tunnel. If we could all, and I mean we, the entire industry, get behind South African processing for wool. We have 2 processes for mohair remaining. We had a whole network of processes back in the day before we had a collapse of our textile industry. And thankfully, we're having a revival of our textile industry, but now we're having to bring back the foundation that has been lost. If we can get behind South African juices, that is where we can start change.
so are you collaborating already?
We have been talking on our TOPS division, have been communicating. I'm not sure 100% where that is, and there'll be some trial fiber. I don't know if that made it through our processing plant in Kinley and Star, but yeah, that's something to look forward to coming out.
And then now for you,
Dealing wool. Okay, let me just qualify what I mean by the wool that I need. I don't use raw wool because the cleaning of the wool is very labor intensive and also very water intensive. I'm in a eco park, so we're not allowed in any of our processes to just release any chemicals. Because all the scourers have closed and all our wool goes overseas, we had to rely on standard wool who would keep a little bit of wool for us. Seagull Masserel little bit of wool. I constantly press on Dion's button for a little bit of wool. And it's because I can't clean the wool. I need it cleaned.
Okay, so with the textile industry in South Africa, where it is, textile research in South Africa is where it is, and as I'm sitting here, we are a dying breed. So yeah, I'm one of two universities that I know of that still do textile research, and the other one, yes, could probably end at the end of this year when she retires. There is some barriers.
Who are you training to be your next left hand or right hand?
No, the thing is, we talked about this. Even our degree at our university is not going to textiles anymore. It's going over to food. So textiles is now seen as a waste product of the food chain, and not its own chain there. Yeah. So
It will just change form. Maybe it doesn't need to be a university, but there can be a new place, independent research place started with a lab where there are all of us that are interested in this come together, and then the industry we know to go specifically to that lab. So maybe it's not death but metamorphosis.
yes, so we can all collaborate and set up a lab.
Is there no merit? We were talking about it earlier on in revisiting CSIR. It's closed now. Now, with this rejuvenation, that's why I set up my career in 1993 at Tech Division at CSR, but it was closed. Is there no merit in trying to clean the space and the wool industry space that we all collaborate? Dion made mention of collaborate, and consolidate and increase impact. 3 C's that he mentioned, Dion. We collaboration, probably consolidate and increase impact. Probably there's a need for us listening to this. We seem to be operating in silos. And if you, I'm in another industry of manufacturing for cars. If you operate in silos, you don't come together. Forget it. Because there's so much good work and goodwill that has been generated in this room. You're meeting for the first time. Because there's no centralized database and coordination and a point of contact. Isn't that something, Dion, that as an industry we should be looking at? That anybody sitting around this room must be able to say, let's go to cables and here's access of the following information like that. And I think we'll only be able to bring the CSR down and engage effectively if we say, these are the people that are involved in industry contribute so much into the economy of this country. Such that we're able to say, this is what we need in our very chain. I think there's merit in attending that, Lezanne.
I agree. Last year we did also have this conversation, and we did receive a beautiful directory at the end of the wool cycle. So I just want to come to say that there was something like that created, because I used that myself actually this year. Since last year I accessed that. But it's one thing to have a name on a list. Then we need a wool ball or something, a dinner, somewhere where people actually really have more time to talk to one another.
I had the pleasure of seeing Dr. Lawrence Hunter. He's the world authority on wool in natural fibers at the CSIR. He's the only last standing man. I went into his office. It's probably about half the size of this room. And when he sat down, I couldn't see him for the books. So we 20 years ago, we were world leaders in wool research. There's a couple of guys in PE, Dr. Donnie van Rensburg, who's selling houses. He left the wool moisture. He's got a PhD in wool and understanding how wool behaves. So the technology is available. It is there. It's just not getting the respect it deserves. Unfortunately, to go back to what Roxanne said about the Hercosset side or the machine washable side of wool, and that's the disadvantage we have. If you don't Hercosset treat or control felting, the opposite of what you want to do, you everything fails, and that is the challenge we have. So they closed down the Hercosset or the superwash plants because there was just not enough volume. To process decent volume, you need 100 tons a month, and it's just not feasible to do that. So Roxanne, I think our wool does go out the country. to China and it gets processed and it does, most of it comes back, I think. But like you say, the traceability needs to be sorted. But guys, we've got the technology, the know-how's all there. It's in Port Elizabeth, of all places.
Are there any exciting blends that are happening with wool that changes the way that you can innovate with yarns? Roxanne actually, she also hand knits and crochets the little swatches that they make. So when they do the innovation on the yarns, or Roxanne tests it by knitting it or crocheting it, and I think that's important because you can actually see and feel how it all, or you can imagine what it could be like for the other knitters. But what interesting combinations or blends do you think can happen to make it even more exciting or to give versatility? Show more versatility.
For us, we have to understand the fiber. So is it going to stretch? Is it going to expand? Is it going to shrink? And if it's going to have a negative, like stretching, for example, you're going to have to try and pair that. If you don't want it to stretch, you want your jersey to hold its shape, we need to blend it with something that's going to hold its integrity. And that's where the experimentation comes in. You can blend wool with cotton. You can blend it with marine. You can blend it with silk. You can blend it with such luxurious natural fibers that can counteract the stretch aspect. Unless you want that, then you're going to do 100% wool, and you can put any shape and manipulate it into any form, like Ronel says. You can go as big as possible and small as it's needed. So their experimentation is key. You need to see if you are marrying up fibers that are going to work well together. You don't want your yarn or your garment to deteriorate after a couple of weeks. You want something that has got longevity. It's going to look fairly new after 10, 20 wears and washes. The great thing about wool, you don't have to wash it that much unless you're spoiling yourself. But then you can also spot wash. So it has got a great versatile usage, and the blends that you can experiment with, linen, bamboo, the list can go on. Even alpaca, it works brilliantly, and is all what you want to achieve at the end of the day.
Is it easy to basically innovate new fibers and yarns, also staying away from any chemicals or any synthetics? Is it a challenge or is it an easy process?
It is a challenge. We have consumers or individuals that are price orientated. If you're having something that's 100% natural, it's not always cost effective for someone that wants to buy 100% wool yarn or wool jersey, for example. That aspect is a challenge, but the bigger challenge is educating individuals on the value that they are purchasing. You can buy a jersey for $100 and it's 100% synthetic, but it's not going to last. It's going to stretch out of shape. It's going to wear. But if you have 100% merino jersey, you look after it. Granted, it needs a bit more TLC in terms of care, but that can, as long as you can fit into it, you're going to wear it. You're going to get your cost per wear back tenfold. And that is what we want. And another thing that I've experimented with is taking one of my jerseys that I don't like the style a lot and ripping it out and knitting something else. So it can be repurposed. Just because the style's gone out of fashion doesn't mean that the fiber's gone out of fashion.
So Jana, we see there's like options like enzymes and microbes and things that are being used in labs that are not necessarily synthetic, but they could serve the same functions as what we might perceive as what synthetic things have done before. Is there something that you can tell us that you've been exploring specifically in that field?
Yes, so no more hydrosect processes, which is very, very bad for the environment. That makes the wool machine washable. So enzymes are definitely on the table. If you combine that with a DES, which is a deep eucritic solvent, I'm pronouncing it correctly. So that even opens up the scales a little bit more so that the enzymes can penetrate even deeper. And that actually like peels off the scales. Yeah. So then it's a more smooth fiber. You don't have anything synthetic. You don't have to worry about what you are putting back into the environment.
I was in Japan a couple of years ago. We did like indigo dye classes. And I didn't know anything about indigo. It was very interesting to learn that indigo actually kind of creates like something around the fiber which then strengthens it. Is that something that you guys have explored with in the labs? I know you do get some indigo from Africa.
Yeah, we haven't, with indigo specifically experimented, no. We are looking at some more natural dyes that can be used. We have dyed with microbial pigments, okay, which is also good for the environment. And then the other thing that we are currently looking at is to dye with peanut peels.
Which color would it?
Okay, it depends on the type of mordant that you use, but it comes out anything from a to beige, those kind of shades, to a deeper red brown.
Oh, would be nice.
We don't want to use food for something else, so I don't believe in using the actual product itself. So we always looking at waste products, okay? So nobody, I think, actually wants to eat that little bit of peel that's sometimes still on the peanut, so it gets discarded anyway.
So it's more about the shells or the skins.
Yeah. Not necessarily the shell, but that little bit of skin, that other little thing that's, yeah.
And you also do live work in communities. Can you give us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I should actually have Durieta up here to come and talk about that. So we had a reform from the project on the farm. I also told you about it last year. We educated some ladies. We trained them, taught them skills. So they were also making some felted products. And yeah, so that was a bit of community empowerment and teaching them.
But is that more on the craft side, on the artisanal side, than on the lab side?
Yes, and that was okay. Yeah, it had a little bit of it. It had animal health, so that trained the farmers on how to produce better wool, how to take care of your sheep better, and then take it all the way through to the processing. So we taught them how you can clean your wool at home, and then how to make a product that they can sell. So it was a bit of community upliftment, empowering.
I think that wool care can be a nice addition to the H&M project, where you also go into the communities then and like really, or not just communities, but to all of us, most people don't actually know how to care for their clothes properly. So that's I think there's maybe a mass role for universities to play, or for the educational system to just teach humans more about how to care for wool, but for your clothes. What do you think is the role for universities in the wool sector in educating the public, but also more specifically to train more people like?
Well, in the processing side, I don't know if there are still any universities or technikons that's still training people in textiles or any of those skills.
Do you have an informal way that you think one could then transfer the knowledge? If the universities are closing, like what suggestions do you have that we can, still transfer that knowledge, even if it's in a different form?
Well, schools, I should say. Yeah, I know there is some information about fibers that is included in the CAPS curriculum. So I think it's a small policy. It's important to get the correct information there, and maybe to go out to schools and educate the children.
Do we have a national PR for wool, like a campaign for wool? Because I think there's a big communication in that area, like.
So there's the campaign for wool, trying not to be a shameless like the Woolmark company, but this works across wool. It doesn't matter where the wool comes from. There's what is called the Wool Appreciation Course. So you're going to woolmarklearningcenter.com, and you can learn everything about the wool fiber that you could possibly want. A very basic level of just understanding the fiber itself, through to how it is manufactured, spinning, knitting, weaving, circular seamless. The sky's the limit. We have a sustainability course. It's something that we regularly update. And then care cleaning guides, also again, woolmark.com. It's on behalf of, and for free to the Woolmark Learning Center. If you get a Credly badge, please use it.
is there information on the fiber itself?
Yes.
Because I know the wool mob is doing bio dyes, and you also developed that. I think it's the solo. It's a bio yarn that you create through an extra machine that you add, and then that somehow is it the wool mark or is it? Can't remember where I read it. I just want to know if all that information will be on the.
If it's something that we partnered on, yes, it'll be.
Okay, it will be there and we can access it.
Thank you for sharing more, Meg. I'm so happy we can all learn from one another. Yes, cross continents, not just about the local industry coming together, but also, globally, how we can all come together and learn. When you want to do bigger projects and you want to scale your felt work or you get a massive order from someone, how do you approach that? If you are very hand and manual focused, how does one address that to keep the integrity of working with your hand, but then also, having the opportunity to scale and also physically scale, but also to do more units of something?
Well, I started treating women in the areas around me. They come in on, say, like every 4 months, they will come back for like a refresher course. And all we do, I basically just teach them how to felt. And then when we have big orders, I create little business units, and the people that are permanently employed will have their little business unit, so they will be responsible for the quality and making sure that the ladies who are making it are making it correctly. And then everybody comes back into the factory because it's virtually impossible to just send them away and expect quality to come back. So everybody comes to the factory and we work in little units so that myself and the factory manager doesn't have to have our eyes. You can't have your eyes on everybody. So it's just pulling in women that I've trained before that aren't full-time employed. We pull them back in.
How many people would you say?
Depending on what we're doing, large orders, maybe 30, then our space becomes a challenge. So I have to ask other factories if they have some space for us, putting tables. So it becomes, you have to plan, ahead, but we've done very large orders, so I'm happy with the process.
That's amazing. I love the spirit of the community coming together and be just training the people. That's amazing. Would you say the people that you're training, are they older or younger? Is it on school level? Is it university level? If you have to.
It's, I would say, middle-aged, young mothers. The younger generation, I just find they are not really interested in learning a craft. So some of them we've trained, but then they go out and they find more exciting jobs. So we can't get them back. It's normally the young mothers and middle-aged women that we work with.
So that to make craft cool again. I think if we're thinking of the bigger picture, there's a lot that we've touched on, but there's something that I personally find quite interesting. When we were in the commune now, creating this wool world, when we arrived at the sheep shearing shed, there was a pile of black fleece on the floor, and Sarah and Matthew, they all just said, take as much as you want. And like, but why is it being given away so freely and so almost carelessly? They're saying that in a nice way. And then we learned there and then that a black wool is often burned or discarded. And that's black wool coming from a black merino sheep. Last year, they used one of the black merino sheep called Ace to shear the sheep there. And then he gave me the fleece. And of course, I was super excited because it's of a black sheep. So we took some time to actually I'm wearing it today. We went through the process of taking this fleece and then really my mother-in-law hand washed it for a couple of days, and then it was carded by hand to big frustration and bleeding fingers, finding little pieces of the karoo felt in the wool, as well as them being hand spun and then finally knitted by Hanley from Rat Studio. But my question is, if there's an opportunity, perhaps for something like a Baba Black Sheep is being rejected and burnt, in the space of innovation, if we're thinking of South Africa and how we want to communicate and make ourselves different and create maybe a niche within the wool niche. Is that something that, makes you, excites you? Is it something that you think is possible? And then, yes, Roxanne.
It's definitely impossible. And South Africa is such a beautiful country. We've got so much to offer. And if we can, all the campaign, demand our wool, we can be on the same level as what Shane mentioned, the New Zealand wool, Australian wool. We will be in that forum and we will be sought after. At the moment, I think we're trying to find our voice, and it's through these sorts of coming together events where we can actually find our voice and sing in unison to the rest of the world. And I think that is what we need. We need to be the black sheep in a good way.
I don't know, what do you think? Have you ever experimented with black wool?
No, I've done artwork in black wool, but not a product. But I just think that if they use it for insulation, because insulation they used very short haired, why not use that?
But would you not be interested to use it also for?
Would I be? Is like, well, from a black sheep, totally from an
Ethic point of view, because I think also if you think of sustainability, we're discussing how we can dye all these things, but if you can already find it black or brown,
is,
so great, Milan. Jana, do you have something to add to the Baba Black Sheep movement that we started?
Yes, it can definitely be felted. We also received some yards together, but our one is I think it was kind of cool. And yeah, it was successfully used to be felted and we didn't have to dye any of those products.